And these are all of our past chiefs that have served our community. Chief Stanley Greer, Chief Reg Crowshoe, Chief Peter Strikes the Gun. This is my cousin here, Philip Big Swan. So this is a picture of myself when I was in leadership in the early 2000s, and I completed my term in 2011. Something that I will never forget. This is my older sister, Harriet. She's the oldest sibling within my family. She was part of the 60 Scoop as well. What had happened is they amended the Indian Act in 1951 to offload the responsibility of Indigenous Child and Family Services to the provinces. The provinces were basically told to that you need to go out and forcibly remove Indigenous children from their homes and put them in non-Indigenous foster homes and adoptions as part of the assimilation process. And it was just an extension of the residential school. When we were removed, it was my sister that actually stepped in and basically took over the parenting role. Okay, Nitaniko Adam Northpagan. I'm actually a 60 Scoop survivor, and I was removed and taken away from this community, my home community, as an infant. And I was moved to numerous non-Indigenous foster homes and children's shelters right from the time that I was an infant up until the time that I actually aged out of child welfare. This is the homestead of where that day happened. And I don't have any memories of that day because I was an infant, but my older sister, who's 9 years older than me, has memories of that day. And what she tells me is that it was a very, very confusing day because she was told by the Alberta Social Services that, you know, to get all your little brothers and sisters, get them rounded up, and we're gonna go for a drive. And next thing, you know, we were all taken away in different vehicles. We were all placed in non-Indigenous foster homes and children's shelters all over southern Alberta in complete isolation. And we weren't there with any of our other siblings. We were just there by ourselves. I think when I was about 14, my foster parents told me that my mother was looking for me and she wanted to meet me for the very first time, and they asked me if I'd be okay with that, and I said yes. I was just kind of going along with it. And so I remember that time when we went to Alberta Child Welfare in Lethbridge, and I went with my foster father, and we were sitting in a large empty room, and just me and my foster father. And I remember as a little boy feeling how scared I was, and I was just trembling, and I was just shaking because I was so scared. And next thing, the door opened, and a large, Indigenous woman walked in, and she came over and she said, "Hi, Adam." She said, "My name is Catherine, and I'm your mother." And she gave me a hug, and I gave her a hug. But at that time, you know, I had learned quite quickly how to shut down my feelings. And I remember that I don't really think that I felt very much that day because I had learned the ability of how to shut down my feelings as a coping mechanism, you know, and to deal with all the trauma and the abuse that I suffered, you know, while I was in care. You know, a loss of identity was very prominent. And I remember as a child growing up and being in a foster home and being ashamed of who I was, being ashamed of the color of skin that I was. During that time, I never had any concept of what my home community was. I didn't know where I was from. I didn't know, you know, who my family was. And I guess the biggest thing that, that I experienced was abandonment, being removed and taken away from my community. And loss of language was another big thing. Up to this day, I still don't know my traditional language, which is Blackfoot. Just before I turned 18, I was sent home to my community here. And when I came home, I experienced culture shock like you could not imagine. And because I became adept to living in white homes my whole life. And all of a sudden getting parachuted into the middle of my community, it was like a war zone, because I saw a lot of things that I had never seen before in my life, like a lot of drinking, a lot of drug abuse, family violence, domestic violence. The housing conditions were really, deplorable, and that's what I came home to. So for me, coming home, even though it should have been a place of excitement and enthusiasm, and because I was coming home, for me it wasn't. It was I was very scared throughout the whole process. And when I did come home, I used to get teased by some of my nation members, because I used to get called an apple, red on the outside and white on the inside. I didn't feel like I was welcome, and I didn't know where I belonged. The lack of stability, it all flourished, and I started to drink quite heavily. I drank heavily, as a coping mechanism. Part of that was, for acceptance as well, to be accepted by my own people, because that's what I saw. So that's what I did. And it led me down, a life of 15 to 20 years of heavy drinking, day in, day out. What led me to to sobriety and a journey of wellness in my life was in 1994. I had moved out to Vancouver, and I was on the streets of East Hastings, and I moved out there with with the woman that I was with at that time, and the mother of my two oldest daughters. And what had happened was, because of my heavy drinking, my two oldest daughters got apprehended by BC Children's Services, and they got put into a white foster home. And they were in care, and I was getting access, and I was visiting them. But the length of time that they were in care was getting long. And just before they were in care for about 18 months, the child welfare worker came and told me that if I didn't do something about my drinking, that I was going to lose my kids, and they were going to become permanent wards of the province of BC. And it was at that point where I really decided that I really needed to do something with my life, because I didn't want my kids to go through what I experienced. So I sobered up, and I went to a treatment center in BC, and I've been walking that wellness road ever since that time. But as I sobered up, and as I started to come home to my community, and I was going to see the elders, and I was getting back into our ceremonies, I talked to my mother, and we started to talk about what had happened. And I started to be able to talk about that resentment and that hurt and that anger that I had towards her. And my mother shared with me about the atrocities and the trauma that she had to face going to residential school. And when I began to listen to her stories, it helped me to be able to understand that, that she had her own problems and her own issues that she was dealing with as a result of residential school. And it helped me to be able to deal with my anger and my frustration. And at the end of the day, my mother and I, we developed a very good mother and son relationship up until the time that she had passed away. And I'm so lucky that I'm sitting here today, leading the charge for reconciliation for the Indigenous people in Alberta and Canada with respect to the 60 Scoop, because there are numerous times where, I could have actually gone to the spirit world through, suicide attempts and alcoholism and drug abuse, but I survived. I know my kids have come in here into council chambers and they've looked at the portraits on the walls, and when they came across my picture, for my kids, my daughters, when they saw it, it was a very, very proud moment for them. To know that their dad, who had, suffered the atrocities of the 60 Scoop, is part of the leadership. And I'm very, very proud of who I am today. I'm very, very proud of where I come from. I'm very proud to be Indigenous. But at the same time, there are a lot of 60 Scoop survivors today that are about my age that haven't found their way home yet. And some of us have not come as far as others. And I know today that there are a lot of 60 Scoop survivors that are in jails, in custody. There are a lot of, our survivors that are in the urban city that are still suffering with addiction. And they're looking for something. They're looking for a place that they can call home. And I firmly believe that mountains can be moved. We can move mountains because we've been able to work with the government of Alberta for the issuance of an official apology that happened on May 28th, 2018, from the Alberta government to all of 60 Scoop survivors in the province of Alberta. And that was a very, very historic day, not only for the Indigenous people, but for all Albertans. And that day marked truth and reconciliation for our people in the province of Alberta. And I was so happy to be a part of that. A lot of that work that we've been doing since the apology is post-apology activities, creating public awareness, bringing our survivors together, creating a safe environment for them to start sharing their stories. Today is a day of celebration, and today is a day of homecoming for me, because as today I can honestly say that as an Indigenous man in Canada, I can say that today I do have a home. And even though I've lived off reserve for quite a few years of my life, when someone asks me where are you from, where is your home, I always tell them that my home is the Piikani First Nation, and that's where I come from.